Hey guys, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The Village of Literature. And today we are going to study Pakistani literature. In Pakistan literature, we will study the poet of the 20th century, that is Sheikh Ayaz. Basically, I have divided my video into two parts. Let's come towards the one part. So, first we are going to study his biography. Who was Sheikh Ayaz, where he was came from, and what is his legacy, as well as what is his stat in literature and in Pakistan. So the very first thing that comes in our slides that Sheikh Ayaz is a legendary poet. So the Sheikh Ayaz is the legendary poet of Sindhi language and one of the greatest scholars of 20th century. Sheikh Ayaz, who was born on 23rd March 1923 in Shikarpur and died on 28th December 1997 in Karachi after suffering from cardiac pain. Now come towards his original name. The original name of Sheikh Ayaz is Sheikh Mubarak Ali, but he used Sheikh Ayaz as his pen name in his poetry. His father's name was Sheikh Ghulam Hussain, and he was expert in legal matters. And he had three wives. Sheikh Ayaz took birth from a Hindu lady who was named as Dadan. Although there is another history, or we can say mystery, behind his father's marriage, but let us not discuss this because our topic is Sheikh Ayaz. So, when Sheikh Ayaz was a child, a foreteller came to his home and took his hand and predicted the four prediction. The very first is he will be highly emotional. Number second, the pursuit of study, or we can say the lover of books. Number third, external travelers who travel the world. The money bags, that means he will be highly rich person. So come towards his literary career. So Sheikh Ayaz is one of the greatest Sindhi poet of the Pakistan, and he is one of the major voices in 20th century poetry. His literary career spanned almost 6 decades and covered a wide range of poetry and prose. He was ranging from the traditional Beth, Wai, Nasrinism, Azad-nism, and the ghazal to plays in verse. He wrote several books on poetry, prose, biographies, plays, and short stories. He wrote in both Sindhi and Urdu languages. He also wrote jail diaries, 4 volumes of autobiography, and translated Shah Jo Risalu into Urdu from Sindhi, which further and that is the work that he translated Shah Jo Risalu that further take him into the maps of the history. Okay, then come towards the second point. He has also composed some poems in Urdu, and 2 of his anthologies are the Baigul and Nalai Dil, and Neelkant or Neem Ke Patte are held in high esteem. Ayaz began writing at a young age, and he started with verse on Sindhi nationalism. He started with verses on Sindhi nationalism and Marxism. Then he moved to poetry about God and his benedictions. And even he tried his hand at Naats. So, Sheikh Ayaz's first Nazm was published in a magazine in 1933, but he entered into the world of literature formally in 1946. He started writing under the guidance of Kayal Das he was a Hindu person. Kayal Das, I think or we can say Kayal Das. So Sheikh Ayaz is the author of approximately 75 books, of which more than 50 has been published so far, and others remain unpublished. Sheikh Ayaz's books have been translated into Urdu, English, Saraiki, German, Greek, and Russian languages. He has great mark on Sindhi language and literature. He composed his poetry almost in all literary genres. He not only composed lofty and immortal poems, but also wrote in prose so excellently. In regard of them, Sheikh Ayaz's work lays are more almost all the subjects from universal to territorial, from humans to patriotism, etc., etc. Ayaz was not a communist, but ideas of communism were present in his poetry. He depicts the sufferings of the oppressed peoples of the world. So the second subtopic comes into the Sheikh Ayaz's poetry, that he was a revolutionary poet or the writer. Let's discuss it. Sheikh Ayaz was a great revolutionary poet of the 20th century. He started his literary journey much before independence. He gave some of good pieces which later enriched with the growing influence of progressive movement. With the passage of time, his perception deepened and expression perfected. He has taken the influence of the Marxism of the age in his poetry, that was challenging the authority as well as denying the status quo, and suggested the masses to stand up for their right and have struggled against the ruling class. His belief, like Marxism, to change the world can be seen in the Sindhi poem that was Penje Jiere Yaro Inqilab Achno Ahe. So in English that can be translated as, in our life revolution is to come. So in the above poems there is a clear optimistic approach of changing the world and getting rid of the cruelty and the exploitation, which is one of the basic notion of Marxist school of thought in literature. Moreover, in the following lines of the verse, there is an innermost of that change revolution. The very first poem is that धरती पई धुॾे कोट सारो थो लुॾे इनकलाब ईंदो कॾहिं अच हली ओड़ाह में केर कंधीअ ते कुॾे इनकलाब ईंदो कॾहिं. Personally, I like these verses because of his revolutionary thought. So this kind of revolutionary slogans were chanted all over the world in the 20th century, especially in Sindh and the Sindhi societies, chiefly which was the mainstream thinking of the age. This kind of revolution was no doubt bloody and of warfare, which at Ayaz is symbolized as Ker Kandhiyat Te Kude entered into the mainstream action of revolution. Now come towards that he was a giant of Sindhi authority. Ayaz, the poet of oppressed class, or we can say that poet of the oppressed class, oppressed people. Sheikh Ayaz not only sang the songs of revolution, but he also sang the class differences and the sufferings of lower class, that of workers and the peasant, in the following lines beautifully. Gabhela gola khute desaji na lola lucha na lola lucha. So We can translate these Hindi lines into English that may end the search for the bread of this land, neither meal may make restless, nor may songs of mothers suffer in hunger. In another couplet he said, न पोहरियत पेट खे हीअं पिटियो न हारी कॾहिं राति सां रीझकनि. May not workers strip their bellies in hunger, nor do peasants drench their land with their blood. Hence, the above couplet showing the condition of the laborers and the farmers in the country, which is clear depiction of the class difference, where rich people, not only capitalists of the feudalist class, is depicted, which is the particular to the society of Sindh, especially of Sindhi society. So, Sheikh Ayaz, the poet of the oppressed, with the widening of his scope of subject, he narrated the sufferings of the exploits, laborers, and harassed peasants. Barefooted dwellers and starving peoples became the subject of expression. He was soft in his tone, but too forceful in effect. He was romantic yet objective. So come towards our I think it is our the other subtopic of the Sheikh Ayaz, that is giant of Sindh. So the very first thing that I am gonna share you with that his love for Sindh. Sheikh Ayaz was giant of Sindh who had produced enormously throughout his life and will be remembered for a long period of time in histories. He was unmistakably a hallmark of modern Sindhi poetry. He excelled in every genre: bath, vai, geet, free verse, and blank verse. His love for Sindh, that Sheikh Ayaz's subjects varied from landlords to the victims of war, to the abundance of haves, from the intolerance of dictatorship to the religious fanaticism. Above all, his love for land was the essence of his poetry. He was a wandering minstrel of modern Sindh. He roamed into the vastness of Sindh and witnessed its beauty, spent long days with the deprived ones, listened to the unending miseries, and painted them in his poetical colors. His famous poem was Sindhiriyate sir ker nadindo sahando ker mayar oyar. So these lines shows first of his revolutionary thought, second his love for Sindh. So we can translate these lines into English that who would not give up his head for his land of Sindh? Who would be stigmatized for that? It had become an unofficial anthem of Sindh, but in response he faced confiscations of his poetry and extraditions from his home. This was composed when there was one unit in Pakistan in which the provincial recognition was denied, and this was the strongest inspiration for the Sindhi peoples. He identified himself with Sindh, and no poetry recited sessions was ever completed without the poetry of Sheikh Ayaz. The forceful voice which Sheikh Ayaz spoke, nobody in the history of the Sindh ever spoke. It led to the imprisonment and the ban on his books. But Ayaz continued to affirm Sindh to his land instead of hypersing. He again and again repeated that slogan, that Sindhiri. Sindhiri je tujo na vato jan karyer te per payo. So come towards his books that were banned during his time because of his revolutionary thoughts. The very first book that his first book of the Sindhi poetry, Jakak Kakriya Kapri, was published in 1962 but was banned by government of West Pakistan for promoting Sindhi nationalism. His second book of the poetry, Bhanwar Bharya Akas, that was published in 1963 and was also subsequently banned for the same reason as the first, for the promotion of the Sindhi culture. So come towards his medal. His poetry, or we can say his thoughts, revolutionary thoughts, are full of messaging and the full of the innermost peace. So he was awarded Sitara Imtiaz for his literary services and is regarded as revolutionary and romantic poet. So this was I would say thank you for listening me. Please wait for the second part and share, subscribe my channel. Thank you.